Good day wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of the Digital Download, the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live, now globally syndicated on TuneIn Radio through IBGR, the world's #1 business talk, news, and strategy radio network. Today, we're leveraging public speaking to grow your business. We have a special guest, Lois Creamer, to help us with the discussion. With decades of experience in the speaking industry, her innovative approach to positioning and monetization has made her a trusted partner for leading industry experts. But before we bring Lois on, let's go around and introduce everyone. While we're doing that, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us? We strive to make the digital download an interactive experience. Audience participation is highly encouraged. Right. With that, Adam, would you kick us off, please?
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite, and speaking at events, something that I have loved in the past and love doing today. But it has a darker side to it as well that perhaps we can explore when we're going through the things with Lois shortly.
Well, now I'm intrigued.
Well, not that dark, frankly.
Okay. Well, welcome. Alex, welcome.
Hello. It's great to be back. I feel like
great to have you back, Alex.
Oh, thank you. Such a warm welcome back. So I'm the bearded sales guy, otherwise known as Alex Abbott, and I've been away for far too long. I'm really looking forward to today's session because if you recall, Adam and Rob, my first appearance on the digital download, 3 years ago? It's almost 3 years, I think. And I was terrified. I don't mind sharing that with you. I was absolutely terrified. And I think I spent the whole hour sitting here waiting patiently for somebody to ask me a question.
How'd that go?
Yeah, it took a few weeks.
Excellent. Welcome. Tim, good to see you.
Yes, thank you. Had somebody at the front door. My name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. Welcome, everybody. Great subject again this week. And I'm famous for writing the book, Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And myself, I am Rob Durant, founder of Flywheel Results. I work with startups to help them scale, and I am a proud DLA Ignite partner. All right, as I said, this week on the Digital Download, we'll speak with Lois Creamer, a renowned consultant and author. Lois works with speakers, consultants, and subject matter experts, helping them build successful speaking practices and unlock new revenue streams. Lois has helped countless professionals use speaking not just as a platform, but as a pivotal part of their business growth strategy. Let's bring her on.
Good morning.
Lois, welcome.
Good morning. I'm happy to join you.
Oh, fantastic. So glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Lois, there's a rumor going around that you've got a book coming out. Is that right?
I can't imagine how you heard that. Probably from me.
Well, I just thought I'd get it in early.
Thank you.
Do you have one by? Do you have one by hand? You know, just.
It just by coincidence I did.
Oh wow!
Wow! Congratulations.
Where can we get one?
Thank you. Well, actually, you can't get one right now. It's not coming out. It's coming out.
I want one even more now.
That's right. October 7th. It's the second edition of my original book, Make Money Speaking. This one is called Make More Money Speaking. And I didn't use AI to create that title, by the way.
We're waving to Andrew, by the way, Lois. I know you don't come here often. So we always wave to Andrew. And Andrew sits at his desk and waves back that we can't see.
Sounds good to me.
It's a long ongoing joke.
Tradition.
Yeah.
Yes. Lois, that's fantastic. Let's start by having you tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and what led you to where you are today.
Well, I am here by total accident. It was never a plan, which is the way life happens for many of us. I worked in corporate sales and marketing for a number of years when I came out of college here in the States, and really liked it, got a lot of great experience, and then left corporate to raise my daughter for a number of years. Then threatened to go back to work. My husband would say, I threatened to go back. And a college friend said, I'm having a professional speaker who lives here in St. Louis call you. He's looking for somebody to run his business. And I told him, maybe you're ready to get back in the job market. And I remember telling her, well, I wish you hadn't, but okay. So he called me and we had a conversation. Wonderful, smart, brilliant speaker named Shep Hyken. Speaker Hall of Famer here in the United States with National Speakers Association, well known all around the world, quite frankly, in all the professional speaking associations. And Shep and I had a great partnership for a number of years. I ran his business, and that's how I learned the business. And the National Speakers Association asked me to start doing some breakouts at their conventions for speakers on how to sell themselves. And that's how this all started. And I wondered if there could be a business in this for me. So a little over 20 years ago, I decided, I think I'll give this a shot. I think I'll give this a try and see if there's a demand for it. And lo and behold, here I am today. And I can't tell you how surprised I am. Because, listen, I remember showing up. There was a mastermind group of very successful speakers in St. Louis. Right out of the gate, they invited me in, which I was totally shocked. And I remember going to my first mastermind meeting with these brilliant folks and telling them, I've been in business, what time is it? Since noon, and I don't even know what to charge. And one of them said, well, I think, this was 1998. They said, I think you ought to charge $50 an hour. And I said, $50 an hour? I'd have to have pantyhose over my face and a gun in my hand. $50 an hour. So I left that meeting. I emailed everybody I had met in NSA, and Shep was wonderful to me. Lo and behold, nobody balked. 6 weeks later, I went to my next mastermind meeting with these incredibly talented folks. And I said, I can't believe it, but nobody balked. And the same gentleman said, well, good, because now your fee is $75 an hour when you walk out this door. And so that's kind of how I was able to start my business, by getting some great people around me in the beginning and learning the business from somebody who was very, very smart in it.
Excellent.
Nice. Love that.
So let's start with the foundational question. How can public speaking be leveraged to promote a business? Can this work for any business?
Well, I think it can work for most businesses. You could pick one that I might think it might not work for, but I really started my business based on my sense, being around a lot of professional speakers, that most speakers really sucked when answering the question, what do you do? Most answered by giving a vehicle that they use in a topic. So I speak on sales, I speak on leadership, I speak on. And I thought that's not a very compelling way to describe what you do. So I worked with other businesses too, small businesses, mostly around St. Louis, and helping them position what they would say in reply to that question. That's really how I started. I think for anyone, being able to answer that question, what do you do, is a foundational element of business, whatever business you're in, whatever size business you're in. And being able to answer that to open the door to a conversation, to me, is the key. And that's really how I developed what I call a positioning statement, a concept and outcome statement of working with you for speakers. So, for example, if you ask me what I do, I could say I'm a consultant in the speaking industry, which really doesn't say much. Or I could say I work with speakers who want to book more business, make more money, and monetize their message, which says a lot more. It gives you some of the outcomes that I say I deliver. And I spoke on sales to some corporate sales teams for a while under the banner Fast Forward Selling. And my positioning statement For that, very simple, very simple. I work with organizations that want to fast forward their selling skills so they'll be better at what they do. So it's just kind of a different approach. But I think any business has to be able to answer that question to get any opportunity to do anything.
I want to get your opinion on this. I teach marketing to college students, and one of the things that we touch on briefly is the elevator pitch or career prep.
Yes.
And so often they are asked, what do you do? And what I teach them is, when somebody is asking you, what do you do? What they're really asking is the unsaid. What do you do for me? Does that align with what you're saying there in the positioning statement?
Well, it does, Rob, because if I always say this will be the best way to answer your question, I think, Rob. I always say this. If I say a positioning statement, let's say I give my positioning statement, I work with speakers who want to book more business, make more money, and monetize their message. I'm going to typically get one of three responses. Tell me more about that. How do you do that? Then I'm going to talk about the vehicles that I use. Thanks for asking. I do it through speaking, writing, membership groups, courses, consulting, any number of ways, however you put it out in the marketplace. Or the third is, how nice for you. When somebody says, how nice for you, it means we aren't speaking to them. It's not resonating with them, which I say is a good thing. We're all in sales. I want to know if this resonates or not. I need to be a good steward of my time, and I want to honor your time. So if you have no interest in what I do, I think it's good for us both to know that.
Absolutely. We have a comment from the audience. Let's see. Bob Britton says, you can amp that up even more by saying, do you speak? If so, I'll help you make X dollars. It immediately makes them makes it about them, thinking about the value they'll find in working with you. Thanks for that, Bob. So, Lois, I think I heard you allude to this. How do you turn a speech into additional revenue streams?
You know, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I started turning my speaking into my biggest revenue stream when I was speaking on sales, totally by accident. I should probably say it was a strategic decision on my part. But I worked for a company, did a program for their corporate sales team. And after the program, 4 of their sales managers approached me all together, which I thought was very interesting, asking me some questions about my content. And when I came home, I always do what I call a follow-up thank you call to whoever hired me or brought me in to speak. So during my follow-up thank you call with the person who gave me the job, I said, I found it interesting that 4 of your sales managers came up all together wanting to talk to me about my content. And then I found myself saying one of my phrases that pays, do you think it would make sense? I said, do you think it would make sense for me to work with your sales managers to actually apply the ideas, tactics, and techniques I talked about on the platform? Because if you do, we could make that happen, and you wouldn't have to fly me out to California. And then he said the thing that just killed me. What would that look like? He said. Well, I had no idea. Because I had no idea. But of course I didn't say it. No clue. I said, why don't I put something in an email, a little proposal for you to look at and think about? I'll have it on your desk in the morning. And he said, great. So I quickly flew to my bookshelf and got out Alan Weiss's book on consulting, and came up with a 3-part proposal, very simple, 30, 60, 90-day plan. Each level, 3 levels, each one increased in price, wanting to sell the middle one. And I put it in email, sent it to him. The next morning, 10 minutes after he got it, he replied, I want plan B. And I want to tell you, I had a permanent indentation in my head from doing this. Why haven't I been doing this every time I speak to a private business or corporation? It was fascinating to me. It's kind of like saying, how can I take a next step with a client? after the speech and become more of a resource than just a speaker at an event. And this was the key. And I call it aftercare. It's the last chapter in my book. And it's what can I do to enhance, to move on, to take that next step. And it worked well for me when I used to speak on sales. I don't anymore. The only speaking I now do are to groups of professional speakers here in the States and around the world. But it worked really well for me. And I have to tell you, it works very well for my clients.
Excellent.
Nice.
I want to bring up another comment that had come through when we were talking about elevator pitches. Scott Taylor says, in an elevator pitch, people want to hear your story, but not your life story. Good point. Thank you, Scott. So Lois, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, sorry, I was just going to ask a question. It sounds like you spend most of your time helping speakers speak more effectively to make more money, as opposed to helping, Joe Blogs become a speaker. Is that did you just sort of end up there because you were so good at what you were doing, or was it conscious?
Well, I just do a little piece in the speaking industry. I don't tell people what their expertise is. They've got to know that to work with me. I don't write speeches. I don't give people presentation skills. When you have all of those things, you come to me if you want to monetize it.
Okay.
So people who are early in their careers, who may want to jumpstart a business, can be a great client for me, but they have to have all of those things in a row, because I'm not really the content person for the speech. I want you to have it, and I want it to be proven in some way. I want you to be out there with it. It's received well, and you've got the ability to present it in a compelling way. Then I'm the person you come to when you want to know, how do I get opportunities to get on platforms, and what else can I do with this intellectual property besides speak?
Yeah. So you talked about that positioning piece being the key. What are some of the other things then that you teach people?
Well, a huge part of I would say the two biggest parts of my business are positioning and selling. How are you positioned? How are you positioning yourself in a powerful, compelling way in front of a buyer who really has an option to work with either you, or there are a lot of other people like you who may be at different fee levels. So how do you make your best case? But sales is the big thing that a lot of speakers don't like to do. And, my message is you can have the greatest message in the world, but it will go unheard if you can't sell it. And I speak to, I've just presented at 2 chapters here in the States for national speakers. I'm going up to the Canadian provinces to speak there. And my message is this is a sales job where you occasionally get to speak. That's what speaking is to me, because if you can't sell it, you're not going to do it. So you've got to be good at sales. And I'm approached all the time by people who say, well, I just want an agent or someone to sell me. I just had this conversation yesterday. And I said to the gentleman I was talking to, so does everyone else. But most of us mere mortals have to learn to sell ourselves. And my advice is to outsource anything and everything in your business except selling. Because the people who hire you to be on the platform want to hear from the source about what you have to say and what your take is on things.
Yeah. Lovely.
So how do you identify the right speaking engagements that will have the greatest impact on your business?
Well, I'm a believer in kind of a disciplined approach, Rob. I tell my clients that I think it's a good idea to think about target marketing early on in your business. And this can be counterintuitive, quite frankly, to a lot of people who think if I cast a wider net, I'll get more interest. But the opposite is really true. The more specific you are and where you would apply that expertise, the more interesting you are to buyers. And so I talk to people and about what their experience has been. However, I worked for a little mom and pop in the United States. Maybe you've heard of it, United States Steel Corporation. It's currently Japan wants to buy it right now. There's a big, but when I worked there, it was a Fortune 10 company. And this wasn't in the 1800s. It wasn't that long ago. But I knew that I didn't want to speak in the manufacturing sector after having worked in there at corporate in a number of years. I spoke for free when I was doing my sales programs. I spoke anywhere and everywhere people were gathered, and they would even have me. I mean, if there were 3 people at a bus stop, I wanted to pull over. Because I recognized that the key to getting quick traction would be in testimonials. Testimonials, I say, are the economic capital of a speaking practice. They say to others that you can do what you say you can do. And so I spent a lot of time doing free presentations around St. Louis, where I live. In fact, I say I spoke at every chamber of commerce, probably within 200 miles of here. And I got some early business, which was interesting, from a bank. And I spoke to the bank, and they liked my program. And they said, well, we have other branches. We'd like to bring them all together. And I said, well, that sounds good to me. So they did. And I decided not to tell that market that my only experience in the financial services industry was that I had a checking account and a savings account. That might make them a little nervous. But I kept getting some opportunities. So I started thinking, my material resonates here. My selling services seems to really be a great sweet spot for me. So I looked for banks, credit unions, mortgage houses, insurance companies. And each time I worked for a bank, credit union, mortgage house, or insurance company, the next one was interested in me. So I think that target marketing is the quickest way to get success. And it also gives you direction. I work with people all the time who jump into speaking and they say, you know, I have been reaching out and I'm getting no traction whatsoever. And the problem becomes this: when everyone is your market, who in the hell do you reach out to? Inevitably, when I do a program for a National Speakers Association, I just did one in Tampa right before the hurricane. I was happy to get out. Gentleman approached me and he said, I'm newer. I've got a great program in customer service. I've got a customer service background. I said, great. Where do you think that would really resonate? He said, anyone who wants a real culture of service will love this program. So I said, let's go call everybody and see if they're interested. And the problem is that when everybody's your market, you sit at your desk and you don't know where to go because it's too overwhelming. When you pick a target market, when you pick a lane, you have an idea of where to go. And it doesn't mean that you can't speak in other markets. I mean, some speaker bureaus in the United States booked me when I was doing sales programs. I remember them calling saying, we've got a gig we want you to do for the International Association of Flag Manufacturers. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? And I said, I'd like to talk to them to make sure I'm a fit. And I was a fit. But after that event, and they were happy, I didn't come back here to my office and say, okay, who else in the flag manufacturing industry should I be looking out for? I went back to financial services. But so it doesn't preclude you from working in other industries, but it just gives direction as I'm looking to chart my own course, because no one's going to think as much about my business and my busyness as I am. No bureau, no agent is going to.
Couple of contrarian ideas there I want to pick apart. But first, we have a comment from the audience. Lori Richardson checking in. She says, sales is the big thing. This is a sales job where you occasionally get to speak. So true. Proud to be in sales.
Yes.
Hey, Lori, thanks for checking in.
And let me just say, Lori, it wasn't until I was in my own business for a few years that I realized my entrepreneurial journey, which may be more than you want to know, but you're going to hear it anyway, began at age 11 when I started offering to walk dogs in my neighborhood for people who were gone all day and didn't get home till 6. So I said, after school, I'll come and I'll walk your dog. And the youngest of four, I made more money than any of my siblings. And then it kind of grew into, when you're going on vacation in the summer, you can take your dog to a kennel, or I'll watch it in the home and walk it. And of course, because I'm a dog lover and I felt sorry for the dogs being alone, I was going from house to house, spending time with the dog. So really, that's when I started thinking, I wonder if there's a need that I could fill. But really, you can't do anything with your great talent, with your great abilities, if you can't sell it, and if you can't talk about it in a highly promotional way. I realize I'm speaking to the choir here with you, gentlemen.
So let's assume that I'm moderately competent in front of an audience, and I'm able to present stuff. So how can I use speaking as a tool to promote what it is that I do if I don't want to be an event speaker as a career, or I don't envisage that as being my future? Because many of the people that tune into the show will run small businesses and would love to have a captive audience. And my comment at the very beginning about the darker side of this is, and Tim and I have seen this many, many times, you go to an event and someone is being paid to speak and they're a brilliant speaker. You go to an event and somebody is speaking for free, well, it becomes a pitch. And that's kind of quite distasteful for the audience in many instances. So how do I, not wanting to pitch to an audience, make use of speaking as a tool to grow?
Well, let me just say this. If you're in an audience and someone is pitching to you, it's not the fault of the pitcher. It's the fault of the meeting planner, who did not set up the criteria, the rules of engagement for that program. And there is never a time, ever, never, ever, where I have gone on a platform without understanding very clearly the terms of engagement. And that's my responsibility. That's my responsibility. And it's the meeting planner's responsibility to let me know. But I am very proactive, doing what I call pre-program work. I did a pre-program questionnaire before every event I did. I wanted to know who's in the audience, what would a win look like to you? What's the most important thing you want me to accomplish? What is the audience makeup? I think this, Adam, it is so important. And I will share with you, I got back a pre-program questionnaire. Adam, I was invited to present at the International Association of Ticket Brokers. You won't be surprised, it was in Las Vegas. Okay? And on the pre-program questionnaire, it said, your audience will be primarily men. I was doing a breakout, about 300 people, predominantly men. So I always like to go down early. I like to ask people, why are you here? What did you come here wanting to know? Because if it's something I can add, I'll add it. I went down and realized in short time, the room had 298 men, one woman sitting in the front row smiling, and me. And
that is predominantly men, isn't it?
Predominantly men, Adam. But totally, very clear, wasn't it? I realized early on, and by the way, I was introduced and was met with a smattering of applause. And I was met with a lot of people with their arms crossed. And I knew that I had to say something. There was an elephant in the room. And so I literally was introduced, came out and said, I'll be right with you. And I walked down the platform, and the room was set up classroom style. It had pitchers of water. I took a napkin and dunked it in the water. Wrung it out, went back up on stage and started dabbing my neck and my head. And I said, you gentlemen will have to excuse me. I'm having hot flashes today. And I bet I have enough estrogen coursing through my veins to counteract all the testosterone looking at me right now with their arms. And I want to tell you, we had a great meeting because their arms went down. Everybody started laughing. And it just loosened everybody up. We had a great meeting.
So on that, was that a pre-packaged comeback that you'd already thought of, or did you do that on the spur of the moment?
No, because I did not think I wasn't going to make a big deal about that it was predominantly men. I mean, I might have said something off the cuff, Adam, during the program, but no, this was not a plan because I had no idea that that's how they defined prominently men. But when I was introduced, the one woman in the front row was really happy. But I mean, I could the energy in the room was not with me because I knew that all of the men sitting there, and I'm not criticizing anyone, but they were thinking, what is she going to have to tell me? That's what was going on in the room. So I knew I had to do something to counteract that in order to be really effective. And I had an association management group here in the States that sent me to a lot of the associations that they represented. And he was sitting in the room. So I really wanted him to be happy. And so I knew I had to do something. And I really just thought of it. And I have to tell you, the room was really warm. I wasn't really having hot flashes, but the room was really warm at the time. And I thought, this doing something humorous might put some defenses down.
Yeah.
And it really did. I think it was a better program because I acknowledged that. And I think people, there's nothing more disarming than humor.
Yeah.
And the effective use of humor worked for me that day because it set me up for a successful event where I could make a difference. And that's what I was hired to do.
Nice.
Lois, some of the things that you said are counter to what most people starting out in business believe. For example, most people starting out in business want to sell to everyone. And you said everyone is not your audience. You also referenced speaking for free. How can a business effectively measure the ROI from speaking engagements if you're speaking for free?
Well, the first part of your question, I'll answer this way. I think of speaking and consulting as intellectual property business. That I tell speakers, that's the business you're in. You're in the intellectual property business. And I think selling intellectual properties is a little bit different than selling other things. For example, free speaking, Rob, I think we have to give away a lot in the intellectual property business to get paid to do what we do. And, going back to something that Adam asked me, and you're asking me now, Rob, about free. When I speak to the National Speakers Association, Professional Speakers Association in Europe and around the world, I'm going up to Canada in a couple of weeks to speak there. They don't pay me a fee. They don't pay me a fee. They pay all my expenses and they have to treat me like a queen. But they don't pay me a fee. Now, so is that dumb? To me, I call that marketing. I am standing in front of my highly defined target market, giving a program. And my sense has been, and this has worked for me for 20 years, if I'm in front of a target market and they like what I have to say, when they might need some help in their speaking practice, their intellectual property business, I think they'll give me a call and at least give me a chance for business. And that's what's worked really well for me. Now, I'm not against being paid. I used to be paid when I did sales programs, but this is the key. When you're starting out, the most important thing, even more important than money, is the experience and the testimonials, the people objectively saying, she came and she gave us some great strategies on sales. She is definitely worth your time. And let me tell you, I put every testimonial I got up on my website. I didn't say waived my fee for this. I didn't say didn't charge for this. And no one looked at a testimonial on my website and said, were you paid for that? Nobody asked me that. And, I'll also say this, that my clients and I never speak for free. I say there are certain situations where I'm willing to waive my fee. And in fact, when I was doing fast forward selling, I had a frequently asked questions page. First question, do you speak for free? Answer, absolutely. I look for 8 to 10 opportunities a year where I'm willing to waive my fee in consideration of value. If you'd like to apply to be one of them, let me know and I'll send you some information. So I was very choosy, and my clients are very choosy. I waived my fee, for example, for some big association meetings where everybody in the audience was a buyer, and the fee that they would have paid me to present there was chump change compared to how I was able to leverage it for everybody in the audience who went back to their individual business and said, she had a great message, we ought to bring her in. I looked at it like a giant showcase. So I think you just need to be smart, as we do in all of our business decisions, as you all do every day. So what is the consideration? Sometimes it's if they don't, everything's a negotiation now in the speaking industry. So it's negotiating for what you can get. Do they have money? And then can I bridge that gap with value? And I'm the one who gets to decide what the value is. And I can always say, you know what? It would be unfair to my clients who pay me my fee to take this engagement. I can always say that. But it's always an individual decision, and value can be very subjective. And it may be, what do you need in your business right now that this company can help you get? Introductions, referrals, bringing you back again at full fee within a calendar year. Can you get, are they having the meeting professionally videotaped? Can you get the master footage and use it as you might want to promote yourself? There are a number of strategic things. And I've got, again, I'm going to say I've got a chapter in my book about what do you consider value when you do have to bridge that gap, or when you may be willing to waive your fee for value consideration to make sure that you are getting what you should be getting as a professional out of the engagement.
Adam, I mean, this is brilliant, and I just love the confidence, and I love the approach. I'm definitely going to rewatch this again afterwards. Adam, at the beginning, you were talking about sort of the dark side of speaking. I don't know if that was a little bit tongue in cheek or.
Well, it was that comment about turning it into a pitch, you know, and I think you're absolutely right, Lois. You know, if you are if you're booking people for an event, you need to be very clear about what the expectation is, whether or not you're paying a fee or not. However, I've still been the victim of many sales, and I use the word advisedly, the victim of many sales pitches when I turned up to hear somebody speak. Because the fact that you're not being paid to speak, that's not my problem. I'm in the audience.
Absolutely right.
I'm here to be educated and entertained. And actually, if this is, so let me tell you a little bit about our business and where we've come from and I'm not interested. I'd rather go and spend the time in the bar, frankly. And I think that has made a very noticeable dichotomy at speaking events.
Well, now that's a business. That is a way of doing business in professional speaking, is speak to sell. I think the problem becomes when the audience doesn't know this, and they show up thinking, and again, I'm going to blame the meeting professional who put this together. Then they show up. Listen, Adam, I will never forget. I went to hear somebody. I'm not going to say his name, but he's very well known. He had a rally here in St. Louis, and several speaker friends and I went.
Is he the very tall guy?
I'm not going to say any names. And we heard him speak, and he segued into selling vitamins. And I remember I was so appalled. I said, well, to my friends, I said, I'm out of here. This is, it's not like here's a book. If you like what I have to say, you can read more about me, or vitamins. And so I did not understand that was going to be part of it. And it bothered me enough that I actually left. Some of my friends stayed, a couple left with me. But there's nothing wrong with that model, business model. What is wrong is when it's a surprise to the audience.
Yeah, and actually, and because I'm not in the speaking industry, we're only on the very periphery of it, I'm happy to say this, but I went to a Tony Robbins event at a big thing, and it was exactly that. He had the 5,000 people in the room. He had the meeting out of his hand, and then it segued perfectly from, and you need to think about this, and you need to have a dream, and you need to do this. And if you want to come and learn more about this, we have a special event which is coming up in a month's time, and it's only $5,000 if you book it now. Who would like to come? And I felt dirty as a result of that. How he segued from the give into a take. And that was very different to the experience I had when I saw Brian Tracy speak, who was just lovely. He was up for a whole day sharing 50 years of experience with the audience. And the sale from him was implicit rather than explicit. And that was what was so nice about that, and a big contrast between the two.
Well, when I'm speaking to groups of professional speakers, I'm not going to stop and say, hey, I've got these great packages, but I mean, this is how I make my living. Because my sense is this, and especially at this point, I was blonde when I started, folks. So I've been doing this a while. My sense is this: if people like what I have to say, they're going to be drawn to find out more about me. If they have a need for what I offer, and I'm going to hear from them. And this has been my experience. So I don't sell from the platform. I don't like it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it for people who do it. I'm not comfortable with it. So I have my own way of approaching this, and it's worked really well for me. But I don't tell people that they shouldn't do certain things. I'm just saying what my comfort level is. And really, I've approached sales all of my life this way. I always tell people my sales style, and I know I'm speaking to sales guys here, has never been, so what would it take to put you in this car today? That is just not me. My sales style is, so at this point, do you think it would make sense for me to work with your people on upping their sales game? That's the way I sell. And the reality is, when you're in the intellectual property business, that's the best way to sell. Relationships rule in business, in every business. They rule in speaking. But the value of being able to do to sell intellectual properties in more of a softer sale, to kind of nudge people along. I'm always telling people, my clients, all I'm trying to do is ascertain, am I a fit for what you need to accomplish? And if I'm not, can I give you a referral to somebody who is? And then when I may be, I bet you're going to think of me.
Mm-hmm. So when you say—
we have a question from the audience I want to bring up. Andrew Slesser asks, is the key lesson to public speaking to express your passion for the topic that engages the audience and leaves them wanting more?
It depends upon what you're hired to do. I think it's never a negative thing to leave people with more interest than they walked in the door with. But if you're there to answer specific critical questions, then I want to know that going in so that I can accomplish what the person who has hired me wants to accomplish. This is the absolute key thing about speaking to me, is when you're talking with someone about a speaking opportunity, when I'm being hired, I want to know, what is it that you want to accomplish and what will it look like if I'm successful to you? Not what would it look like to me? What would it look like to you, to the person who's writing me a check? And I think that these are the things that we have to cover before an event. To me, it's part of the sales process, ascertaining fit.
Alex, you were asking?
Well, just taking a step back, you were talking about speaking to sell. And in my mind, I was thinking, well, okay, great, but how do you do that? Aren't we speaking to educate and then people buy from you?
The answer is yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But in a speak to sell, it's education and sales. So they're giving you an opportunity. They're asking you to educate, but they're giving you an opportunity in lieu of getting a check to promote what you want to promote. So it's a mix.
So you would, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a mix.
So you would, that question you said earlier that actually I'm going to write down in a minute. So at this point, is it about time I should be working with your team? Something along those lines. Do you do that in your speaking gig to the audience?
No, never.
No, separate.
I never did, but I didn't do speak to sell. That was not part of my business plan. It's part of business plan for a lot of people who are very good at it. That was not something that I chose to do. So that was what I would say to get the gig, or afterwards to convert it into what I called aftercare. How can I take a next step with my customer to help reinforce and implement some of the ideas that I talked about. And not everybody says yes on this stuff. People can say no. I will say that when I would ask a decision maker after a program, do you think it would make sense for me to work with your sales managers, it was always sales team, to implement these ideas? If they said no, I think they sounded stupid. Now, it's not like I'm trying to make people sound stupid. I'm just trying to make them think.
Yeah.
Before they say a no. It may be a no for whatever we don't like you. We don't, we don't have the budget for it. It could be a no for any reason. But I want people to think about it, because I want people to be thinking, really, okay, we just spent several $1,000s to bring you in, but no, we're not interested in implementing it.
That checks. Caesar asks, Caesar Elaine Tara. Oh, I apologize, Caesar, but I try. How can AI leverage the way you strategize public speaking and use the tools necessary to education and fit within a model's organization to build value and create impact for further future referrals to attain sustainability in a global complex environment?
Well, if I even understood that question, let me just say what my understanding of what you're asking is, friend. And AI has changed the game for people in intellectual property businesses, and in speaking is what I'll talk about because that's my area. It has added an incredible ability for us. I remember when I was doing sales in financial services, and I told you my experience was I had a checking account, which wouldn't have given people a lot of confidence bringing me in necessarily. So I read every industry periodical, every newsletter, every article. Google would get these for me every morning. I would have these and read them. So I could really be up to date on what was going on in my chosen industry. Now, I can go to ChatGPT and say, what are the top 10 things that keep CEOs and financial service firms up at night? And I can get a clear understanding of some of the challenges in this industry that I might not be familiar with. So AI has really enabled us to do market intelligence much more quickly and effectively. And it's also helped, I think, in content curation. I look at AI as a tool, not as an end result. I think that that's very important for people to realize. But I was just talking with, we have an expert in National Speakers Association in the United States, Terry Brock. He's a CSP, Certified Speaking Professional, Speaker Hall of Famer. And Terry speaks on the future of work in AI. And I remember talking to Terry when I was in Tampa a couple of weeks ago, and he was in the audience. And I remember saying to him, remember I was blonde when I started my business, when the advent of the internet, when people said, well, this is just going to be the ruination of we'll never let this in schools. Schools will never. Well, it's the same kind of thing with AI right now. We are just at the dawn of the day. I think that learning these tools, I use ChatGPT, I use Perplexity, I use a program called Opus, for clips, doing clips that I used to pay people to take clips out of speeches that I did and put online. Now I can go into Opus AI and say, give me clips under a minute from this program. Click a button there in front of me, and then it says, where would you like this placed? And it lists all the social media channels. So it enables us to be very productive. Now we have AI that reasons with us. I have conversations now with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And so this, I think that this is going to be very, very exciting. I think the problem is going to be when people start using it as the end result of everything. Use it for all of your writing. These things are not going to go well if you do. Plus, I think that when you're in intellectual property business, if you read a book that I've written and it doesn't sound like I've sounded in our time together today, there's going to be a very big disconnect. I have always come with an opinion. I have a lot of experience in this industry. I don't know much about a lot of things. This industry, I know a hell of a lot about. So I come with a point of view. I can be a contrarian, some people might say.
No, surely not.
And if my writing doesn't sound like that, it's going to turn people off. So you have to be very careful how you use it. But I think it's going to be, we're just at the beginning of the wonderful things it can do for us.
Yeah, it's true.
Absolutely.
Lois, we're coming to the end of our time, but I wanted to ask, because you've referenced it more than once, can you talk us through the basic frameworks of what you mean by aftercare?
Yes. Aftercare is, as I said, how can I take a next step in implementation? When I was brought in to do a sales program, I did anywhere from an hour to a half day, 3 hours, typically in our business. Some people do a whole day. I did up to a half day because that's all I wanted to do. I decided. And so then how much information can I impart? So I'm going to give people strategies. But then if they want a roadmap to get there or help to get there, that's what aftercare is for me. It's how can they implement? So specific implementation steps in my aftercare were having weekly sales meetings with sales managers, doing individual coaching with sales managers, writing some specific articles that were geared just for them. It might be situational responsiveness. They can email me at any time with a concern. I had one who bought the highest price option, which is the one I really didn't want to sell, but I charged more for it. So if they did, I could buy a lot of aspirin with the money that they paid me when they gave me a headache. But they could call me if they had a question, and I would get back to them. And I always took that very seriously, responsiveness. I think that's, incredibly important. So aftercare can be anything. It can also be, I have a course and I'm going to allow your employees to access it for the next 60 days. Aftercare can even be, now speakers are being videotaped everywhere. Aftercare can be, I used to always give my clients who were videotaping me a certain free period of time to use that tape for people who couldn't be there at the presentation or people who might want to watch it again. So I might say, I'll give you 30 days access to this video. At the end of 30 days, I'll offer you an opportunity to license extended use of it. And if they wanted to, great. If they didn't want to, then typically it's on their server. I would say, please remove it from your server. I'd put that in writing. And I was just asked in a program I did the other day, well, how do you know they removed it from their server? And I said, well, I can hire a lawyer and sue them over my little fee. Probably not. Wouldn't make sense. Or I could get a black turtleneck, a black cap, and a mask, sneak in at night into the company, try and find their server and remove it. Or I can say, please remove it. And if they don't, I consider it marketing and I'm never going to give it another thought. And so these are all the ways. I'm always looking for how can speakers monetize their message after the event, because it is not practical anymore to have a business, a speaking business, where all you do is get on planes, speak, come home, get on the next plane, speak. It's just too difficult now. And we know now more than ever that people like to learn in many ways. So let's offer a number of ways that people can tap into our expertise. That's what Aftercare is.
Lois, this has been great. Can you tell us one more time about the book?
Love talking about the book. It's
Have you
going
got
to
a book,
be out.
Lewis?
It's going to
You
be
should have
out.
said.
You've not mentioned yet.
This is the original. Notice how much they look alike. The new book has new information on licensing and AI and virtual presentations and how to roll these. I redid it because my first edition didn't have the word virtual in it. So I decided I needed to rewrite it. But it's all about how to book more business, make more money, and monetize your expertise. That's really what it's about. It's a very niche book. I will tell you, when I first wrote it, somebody said, well, how do you think it will do? And I said, well, I think it's going to sell in the tens. And they said, of thousands? I said, no, the tens. And that's if my family buys it. It's so niche, but it's done incredibly well for me. I'm amazed. And so that's why I decided it was definitely worth going back and doing a second edition. I'm very excited about it. It'll be out next week.
Where can you buy it?
You can buy it at Amazon.
Okay.
And where can people learn more about you? How can they get in touch with you?
Well, my company is Book More Business, and my website is bookmorebusiness.com. And so feel free to reach out, Lois at bookmorebusiness.com. My contact information is all on there. If I can ever help anybody, I've got a number of resources on there that you might find helpful. Feel free to reach out there.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
We now have a newsletter. Don't miss an episode. Get show highlights, beyond the show insights, and reminders of upcoming episodes. You can scan the QR code on screen or visit us at digitaldownload.live/newsletter. On behalf of our panelists, to our guest Lois, to our very active audience, thank you all for being a part of the
Lois.
Digital Download.
For next
And
one.
we'll see you next time.